here's the script for the first episode. The following entry lives in a journal. An old and tatty one bound in leather. You've seen the first video. You've already read this or heard me read this. But if you wish, you can read through this again. There's some questions from the first post that were really about, what was going on. So, who made the leather bound book and why? Because we opened with someone reading it. Um, if you haven't heard the first episode, I really recommend going and checking it out. It's the only other video on this channel at this time of posting this video. Now, the language of symbols. I made this little infographic, and this is just to talk about kind of how I see symbolism working on the overall. Now, I don't know how well this is going to show up in the video, so see if I can zoom in. Here we go. Now, so the very first thing is the medium we're going to talk about, and this refers to the where. This refers to typo. I hate that. Anyway, sorry, but this refers to where the symbol is present and by what means. Inked and carved imply different commitments. In flesh or on paper do too. So, the concept I'm talking about here is like if someone has engraved a symbol into their skin, that is a permanent placement. That is something that they're really committed to. There is a communication in that. So maybe in one context, the word cat is a trivial, small word. It is not a meaningful word. It just refers to maybe an animal or maybe something with feline sensibilities. So if you read a cipher, some sort of symbol that implies cat, the only real kind of clue you're going to get is where it has been written. And if someone has written it into their skin with a knife, you know that this actually maybe holds some serious significance in this case. So, yeah, a little bit of splashed ink on paper is much more frivolous, or something like charcoal pencils be probably a lot more temporal, like a lot more specific to the moment it was written in than to the entirety of a person's existence. Now, size and location. This signals the intent with the message. Self-branding worn visibly and large is much different than a small symbol on a page. So you have to think again, go back to this like word cat or like something like door, some sort of frivolous like small word. But again, if I make a giant billboard that says door, you are aware of probably a place of business. So this is already something that's communicated in our languages. The size and placement shows you whether something is inviting or whether it was intended to be secret. It shows you whether something is private or very public. You can't get mad at people for looking at your billboard because it's so big and eye-catching. So it's kind of the idea. So someone has written their symbols on their face or their body in large, thick font, then at that point you go, right, this person wants me to look at them. They're like a power symbol or some sort of a influence over me. And this is how I was thinking about it when I was coming up with this idea of symbols. And these play a role in the magic system I'm thinking about working into everything, which is there's power in ritual. There's power in doing things a certain way and in patterns. So if I can invoke subconscious correlations in people, like if I can have multiple people look at something, feel the same way, then there's a power to that. So there's power in symbolism. A king's crown, for instance. In reality, king walks up to you wearing a crown. There's an immediate subjugation feeling. There's an immediate of them being above, them being in church. And this is the same kind of idea. If I draw a crown now, or if I draw something that invokes a crown in your mind, now there's a similar effect of taking power. Now the quality is the next piece. Perfected symmetry takes time. So to this craft, the context, another typo, I'm gonna burn this image. uh, the context informs you whether this was made under duress, with lack of care, or outright arrogance and contempt. So think about it. If I scroll something very, very fast and I move on, that was really not made in the same kind of way as the symbols on the book in the first post. You've got a detailed, perfect circle with symmetric branching curving patterns that form a triangle, and you got these indecipherable scrollings on the side that are obviously clipped. They have a pattern to them and they appear to be incomplete. So there's some time, craft, and energy is put into these. So these are not frivolous and trivial. These are meaningful and they're engraved in skin. So that means that these are high quality on a meaningful medium and done so as a presentation piece. It's the cover to the book. So you're meant to see this. This is a warning or something along those lines. This is a invitation to you to think something about this book before you've read it. Now, ciphers. So symbols can be subconscious, something like a crown, but then you think, well, where would the points in that crown be pointing, and what could we potentially communicate with the symbol as well? And this is where people start using them as ciphers. So you see, I've done this triangle on the left, and it has 3 corners, and it's got these dots. And the idea I used for this was just to show the dots are kind of an orientation to show you north and south there, top and bottom, and then the triangle is fixed as the most eye-catching thing. Now this one's done in bright colors and it's very obvious what's going on, but the idea would be that someone could be turning the circle as a word dial, and now you have 1 point on the dots and 2 points on the outer circle, and this could communicate. This could communicate 3 pieces of information. This could you got the binary of, dots or circle, and then you have so many dots to play around with for I haven't actually counted them, but let's say there's 26 dots. So you have 26 letters, lowercase and uppercase. Or you can have some maybe mixture of numbers and letters. And this would require that the other person has as a letter wheel or some other form of cryptography kind of workaround. But if they know roughly what they're looking for and how the translation would in theory work, then they can use this symbol, which most people would probably stop at saying, okay, well, the symbol, it's a whatever. Well, they could use this to actually encode a message. And if you've got an array of symbols, what kind of messages could you indicate and hide within them? Originally, I was thinking actually with the book, for instance, you've got the symbol on the cover, and now you got to think, well, we got the symbol on the cover. What if that's actually saying that there is certain page numbers or certain chapters that one would go to, and they would find themselves reading something much more interesting than the book. They would find themselves reading select chapters, and these are ciphers used all the time. You find people usually use the King James Bible, and they'll tell you a page number. So this is not a complete fabrication of what would actually be something people do. No. Oh, why can't I move this? Here we go. I was using the arrow keys. Now this is the next section. There's kind of two here. Presentation and structure. How's the information now? A book in a library of others implies something. A symbol, a coin, something else. Follow the connection. So again, what is the value of the symbol, say, on the spine of our book? It's incomplete, but incomplete from what? Maybe there's more books in a set, or maybe the original sheet of skin has more information. Identifying what else it's connected to can sometimes help complete the puzzle or complete the rest of the image so that we can really understand what's being communicated. Because, if you only found one page of a book, there has to be a page two. But with symbols, people see the all-seeing eye in real life, and they think something like, this has to imply everything. All the information has to be in this one symbol. And instead, what this language kind of implies is that you really need to consider the wider body. Now, variance in quality, often a form of highlighting key pieces. So you think about it. If I start off writing a classic letter and I do the big glorified shiny A or T of starting a letter, I've put a lot of time and energy into that because that's the beginning and I want to draw you in. You can kind of do this with symbols where certain symbols will be given prominence, like I don't want any miscommunication here, but other ones not really. Or even as I move on to guiding ones deciphering in a chronological order. So put the most effort in at the start and then decreasingly rush to the end so that someone can go, well, even if there's overlap and interference, we know through like the degradation in quality what to read first. So this means you don't have to write in any sort of kind of Western standard of left to right or Arabic standard of right to left, and instead could write all over the page and still convey a sense of momentum and chronology. Now the last piece is just this kind of I threw something together real quick to say, like, deciphering ancient symbols. You'll need context, knowledge of multiple languages, an idea of who wrote it and why, plus the original itself. You can't judge things like medium and quality in a recreation. And then I just made this little symbol here to kind of show what you could be talking about. You'd have to figure out these outside circle pieces, what they're talking about, why they're fractured in such a way, the arrows, what they're talking about. Are they just an orientation like the dots on the other one, or are their points meaningful, or both? And then you also have this squiggle, the weird circle, and you'd have to ask what that's meaning and where that's leading you. So this is an interesting little kind of thing to think about, because I see people dabble with such things, with symbolism and stuff, but I just wanted to like kind of make it more prominent in my current project. Now, where am I? Hold on. Now we're meant to be on this, and this is the Tumblr, by the way, which will be linked in the description, so you can go check out all this yourself. You can save the typoed image before I get around to changing it, because I'm better than having something I don't want people to have. Now, understanding those understanding the role of symbols in this world. So here we go. Symbols are basically a medley of clues, a language, and ciphers. They form a dense alphabet and a constantly evolving grammar system that gives a scribe real power in what every choice means. The symbols feature at the moment mostly around transcendence. This is this idea I have in the story of why would you need these, and this is kind of, so this is beings like the Guardsmen or places like the archives where supposed to be life and death. See, this is why this is in the rough ideas section and not in the main canon, because these are riddled with typos. Because this is the creativity section. I would highly recommend whenever you're writing something to definitely start with a dump of just like not being overly critical, because you will get in your own way of thinking by focusing on things like grammar, structure. Um, so we're okay with this for now. So this creates the need to, yeah, so archives where life and death are much more fluid. This creates the need for a language decipherable by context and interpretation, rather than agreed upon meanings like the English alphabet. However, clever scribes around the time of the oppression of magic, which is what's going on with the pure humans, the war between mages, the destruction of archives, and there's a lot more going there, but effectively they've took to including layered messaging. So enter the language and ciphers usage. So a lot of what they're dealing with is they have an accepted language which is needed for their job. However, they're now using it as a subtle form of encryption to now hide coded messages to each other, to obscure magical items, and to create a smokescreen. So you'll find needed engravings and bones in the archives being a place for prospectors. So this is actually the prospectors will commune with the dead. However, other symbols are clues against the anti-magic pure humans, and furthermore, others are merely stamps for cataloging, where a microchange can denote increments and other information. So this is one of these things, again, I'm focusing on, which is the idea that these are humans who can go to effectively a giant database, a mystical database, and they can just plug themselves into the spirits and can kind of browse them like a necromancer's Google. Okay. So it's like a necromancer's Google. Furthermore, you've got shit. Whew. So the idea is these prospectors can ask the spirits, I need treasure, I need medicine, I need signs from your time, I need to understand X, I need to know Y, I need to, and these serve to function at one time, because you think in our world history is an art and not a science, because a lot of things are lost, or we only have biased accounts, and that does mess things up a little bit, especially when it comes to unanswered questions, mysteries, or just general conspiracies. So this is now something where you could ask, you could ask the dead, and they will answer in this universe. They will answer. So this is the archives were set up with a purpose, and the purpose was huge data collection, because we can build a library of in-depth archives that will curate magic, that will curate the ideas of dead people. But obviously, as I said, there's power in rituals. So this idea of collecting dead bodies, engraving the bones, placing them in, going through the methods of a seance, the occultism, drawing on them, getting requests from the dead, giving requests to the dead, and both being fulfilled. This created an entire magic system around it, because there's power in ritual, there's power in doing the same thing. And once you have something like that in this world, it draws envy, it draws rivalry, and it breeds disparity. So you end up with a discrepancy between entities. Now, this is a story of sorts I wrote. It's very short, but it's called Story of a Traveling Woman, and I'm going to read that specifically on its own. But here's a map, and this is the Caban Islands, and these are actually infinitely numerous. They're constantly being eroded, and other ones washed up and aggregated. These are a shifting volcanic rocks. So this is what they would refer to in geology as a hotspot in the plate. So a volcano has burst up and has been eroded as a new volcano, and then that one was broken and eroded as a new volcano, and that was broken and eroded, and so on. And then we have the main island of Kibon. Kibon names the region. It's the local word for biggest island. So if a new island, if a new volcano was to emerge here, this would be Kibon. But for now, this is Kibon, and everything in the tail is the Kibon Islands. Good, great. Archive is up here, and as you'll see, it is above the region of the Cursed Lands, and below is Drestiel. Now, Drestiel has this difficult position because it has the pure human movement, and it is trying to get rid of magic. However, if they go here to get to the archives, if they sail this water here, they have to deal with all the islanders, and these people are skilled. You probably see like little islands like this, got jagged, crooked little bodies of water. These people are skilled sailors, and they regularly will plunder any ships coming from Drestial into these waters. So that forces them to consider the land path. But this is the region of the Cursed Land. This is where the magical war happened. In this region, as we talked about in the earlier episode, this is a place where the rock weeps acid, and there's regular landslides. The trees have intertwined with each other, and the plants have burst into flames. This is a scorched, horrible hellhole. Regularly, the ground beneath you could just give way, and you fall into a cavern. And what has happened to the wildlife and the beasts is much, much worse. So this is right out, and this is dangerous, and that breeds conflict between Drestial and Kibon, because the magic users have hidden an archive very close to Drestial. And remember, Drestial, again, as I said, they're in pure human movement, which, as I said in the previous episode, is an anti-magic cult. They are obsessed with destroying magic. It's not even logical or defensive. It is a fanaticism against it. They see it as unnatural, a perversion of the normal, and to that end, they have to go to the archive, and they have to destroy it. Now, the girl Olivia has made it here, and Shadon has made it here. Another thing to take note is I did mention that Kibon becomes a mountain ridge at one point, and a desert, and seeing it now as a vast wet ocean land probably should show you the passage of time between those two accounts from the one man Shadon. And Shadon is human. He's a great husband, but he's human, and effectively, I'm trying to invoke in you that there's a huge passage of time to which he is still alive, and give you a question of how he's doing that. This is a fun little account. This isn't a story or anything. This is just some backstory. So I'm going to read this now. In the Kibon Islands, children often sang. Crickety, crockety, rickety, rockety, they came for the women, they came for the property. The shiny men with shiny swords came in droves, came in hordes. But Father's mud axe made them crunch. Oh, Father's axe turned them into lunch. And Mother smiled and Mother sang, for she built new pots with the bodies sprang. The song referring to Drestial's failed attempts at conquering the islands, a quest that became the ambitions of Paul Dalton. His shipping businesses and political schemes sabotaged too many times by the wild and untamed islanders. However, Dalton really only secured holdings and headaches from the islands. He served as a diplomat in several larger islands and ruler and military leader to others, and even holding more than half of Gibon, the largest island, the names, the regions of the islands, at one point. However, his fleet of merchants became targets. His allies back in Drestiol, that's Destiol, typo. Uh, his allies back home in Drestiol became impatient, and his soldiers became dead. His largest supporter, Edmund, was executed, and Dalton returned home to pledge his sword and loyalty, even crowning the new ruler of Vernon. This is a relevant name to the story I'll be reading in a minute. Vernon lived in exile, however, after his ill health forced him from the throne. He spent his fortune chasing cures and disappeared not long after. Dalton took to pledging his allegiances to any who appeared strong, a mistake that cost him his life in the Civil War of Gabon when. Am I being. Wait. No, it is Drestiel. I've spelled it wrong twice the same way here. That's gonna bother me. I'm gonna change that now. No, I won't. So a treaty was struck and trade resumed. However, Dalton was only the most famous of invaders, not the first or the last. So that's this little piece. Now, this is a further explanation behind the maps. It's a little longer. Working title for this land is Kagol, but I am open to changing it. And this is a subtle reference to. Well, I'll leave it and see if anyone figures it out. But this is yeah, this is this is a larger body of text, and this is all on the Tumblr if anyone wants to read it. Okay, so I'm gonna end that here now because I think that's up to that's up to date. So I will upload a video of me reading the account of a traveling woman, and then talking about that because I think that's an interesting pivot point conversation on its own. If you like the video, like, subscribe, it really helps the channel grow. And please do check out the Tumblr. There's an Ask Me Anything section, so feel free to ask me anything. If you have a good question, I will probably end up writing a short story or at least a piece on it, and it might find its way into one of these videos.